Yeah, I think you sum it up quite nicely. I guess that's pretty much how has been our template for the season, our seasons before as well too. We've got some solid players. And the beauty about how we've been playing is that it's not one individual doing it every single day. Different players are stepping up on different days. So I think we're still arguably not haven't played our best game yet. But the beauty about that is that we're still getting the 2 points necessary each time we cross the line. Look, I think the first priority is always to win the game. If we find ourselves in a position where conditions are favorable that we could think about net run rate, I think we'll do that. But I think the first priority is to accumulate 2 points every single time we play, and build our momentum. We're on a bit of a roll in terms of 3 back-to-back wins now, so it's just a matter for us just to stay consistent. I think the run rate and these kind of things will take care of itself. If it comes down to that, then at least we'll know later down in the tournament where we stand and what we need to do. Yeah, I mean, credit to both KG and Siraj. I think they've been outstanding this entire competition. They've led the power play, I think, in this entire competition, and they've made it difficult for the opposition. And that speaks volume for their class. And they've been able to. I mean, very rarely I've seen two bowlers, bowling 3 overs back to back in a power play. So it says a lot about their caliber and their quality. So I think when they start, they set the tone in terms of what length works on the wicket, and then it's just a matter for all the other bowlers to follow. It's not much more to be said. I think is like any cricket game, you got to go and assess first. And I think we've been able to assess quite well, and we've been able to make adjustments when necessary. But I think more often than not, it's just hitting that really good length and just making it challenging for the opposition to score. That's your first question. Yeah, I do enjoy bowling here. I think it's a wicket where it has a little bit for the seamers, but it could be a good wicket to bat on as well too. But I think to be successful on this wicket, you got to spend time as a batter. It's not a wicket I think you can just come in and hit from ball 1 consistently. You might get one across the road, but I think you got to really pick your right deliveries to score and be selective. So it's a good cricket wicket. I think it's really, really good for the IPL. It hasn't been one of those wickets where you're seeing 240, 220, 260. And I think that's fair cricket, to be fair. I think some of the other grounds are very, very difficult for bowlers, and it's just a run fest. So to see a good balance between bat and ball, and games could still go to the 20th over, it says a lot about the facility. So credit to the groundsman here at the stadium. And then to answer your second question, look, you play the game away, and you set out how you want to play the game. Sometimes it comes off, sometimes it doesn't. I think the main priority for us is to stay positive and be clear with our plans. As batters, we just got to go out there and be clear, be positive, and play our games. Sometimes it may come off, sometimes it won't come off. Our top order, as you said, has been, pretty consistent for us over the years. Not only this year, but over the years. So I think the matter for the middle is just to come in and build a partnership with whoever is there from the top. Take the game as deep as possible, and as you said, maybe win it a little earlier. Look, to answer your question, I think when you look at the history of this franchise, it's been pretty consistent over the years. They've got into the playoff, they've won the competition, and it's only their 5th year in IPL. So I think when you look at that, it breeds consistency. So something that we're doing has to be working. I mean, so many people get caught up with what's going on around the entire competition, and there's some surfaces that you can exploit and really put pressure back on the bowlers, but for us, it's just about playing the scenarios. We try not to get too far ahead of ourselves. Even although conditions may be placid in a sense where you can score a little bit freer than some other surfaces, it's still a matter for us to play the situation that's in front of us. And I think our batters do an excellent job of that. And then when you look at our bowling attack, our bowling attack is relentless in terms of the lengths we hit. So we back our bowling attack to defend. We back our bowling attack to set the tone if we've got to bowl first. So for us, it's just mainly playing what is in front of us, and I think a lot of teams' downfalls so far in this competition is probably getting too far ahead of themselves, especially when batting first. They probably go too hard and lose too many wickets, and before you know it, they're out the game. I think when you look at us, we've been consistent over the years because, we don't panic in a sense where we feel as though we have to run the game down. And I think it's important to understand the scenarios and understand the situations that you face. So, yeah, I think that's the best way I can answer your question. To be fair, that's why we train. For me personally, it's a length that I spend a lot of time on because I feel it's the hardest length to hit. Whether or not the wicket may be flat or placid, or whether it may have a little bit more bounce than anything else. But again, it's assessing. You got to assess and find out what length is best on the wicket. So I don't even think it's a situation where this is our bog standard length. I just think the conditions here dictate that you probably could hold on your length a little longer. I think when we've gone to other venues, we've made the adjustment, and that's signs of a really good bowling attack. So yeah, like anything else, you got to practice it. You gotta really put in some hard yards in training to make sure that whatever scenario you're faced with on the ground, in terms of what lengths you need to bowl on a particular wicket, you're able to hit. Look, I think I kind of answered that question before when I spoke about how we've gone about it, and then when you look back on the history in this franchise, they've got a pretty good record. They've done well consistently over the 5 years that they've been in this competition. So we must be doing something well. Whether or not we've got enough to win the competition, I think best teams that win competitions hold their nerve deep in the competition. This franchise has won the competition in its first year. So it's not to say we haven't won or we can't win playing the way that we play. So clearly that shows you that, what we're doing makes sense. And we're well supported by the support staff. They've been very clear to us. They've been wonderful. Ashish has been outstanding, and his whole entire staff is supporting them really well. So I guess if you look at the numbers, and I haven't really looked at them to be fair, I just know this franchise is always in the playoffs, and more often than not, they're very competitive. So if you look at how we play, we must be doing something well.